The SACP is once again threatening to go it alone in the 2026 local government elections. This as its alliance partner, the ANC, grapples with its weakened state in KZN and Gauteng. The National Working Committee is once more deliberating the possible disbandment of the provincial executives in those two provinces. Will the ANC find the seemingly elusive Ferrari that Party Secretary General Mbalula says is needed to win back the hearts and minds of South Africans? I'm Zianda Ngobo with a wrap of This Week in Politics. The week kicked off with threats from the South African Communist Party that it will dump the ANC in contesting the 2026 local government elections. But the party has tried this before. Nearly a decade ago, it put up candidates in the Free State's Metsimaholo local municipality and performed dismally. So what's feeding its current confidence?
Principally, the people are not necessarily attached to identity of parties. When they participate in the elections, they vote for their well-being. So their well-being have been affected terribly by the system of capitalism in this country pursued by government.
The SACP will finalize its decision on whether to break ties with the ANC at a special national congress taking place between the 11th and 14th of December. But there is a view that if the communists are as serious as they claim to be this time around, why not recall their ministers who enjoyed the benefits of serving at the pleasure of the president?
It's not as simple as that even, because of the dual membership component of this alliance, of the membership of the party and the ANC. But at the same time, for instance, I can tell you that one of our provinces took a decision over the weekend that once we affirm this position by the Special National Congress, they are leaving. And we said no. At the moment, no, because the idea is that we still retain the duality of the membership across the components of the alliance. We have not yet ended the alliance. We are reconfiguring the alliance.
So they said they were leaving the ANC or leaving government positions?
No, both, because those government positions, the SACP, and I think journalists have missed this point for decades, actually. We do not have even what the DA attempted to put on the table of so-called sealed agreement with the ANC throughout. We have never had a single cadre in government accounting directly to the SACP. We created a mechanism to engage with these cadres, all ministers, for instance, in government. Just like a couple of weeks, we had an extensive discussion with Minister Thembi on the NHI. So no minister is an SACP minister. All of them go through the ticket of the African National Congress, implement policies of the African National Congress. The problem has been that the ANC's direction to these ministers, where it is supposed to be a collective direction, has been imposing neoliberal economic strategies, and they can't defy the party that sent them into government.
The ANC appears to be playing a wait-and-see game.
We had a bilateral with the South African Communist Party. They did raise the issue of going it alone. We have agreed to continuously engaging on this matter, including the modalities of that particular decision. A decision to contest election is a decision of the Communist Party. They've got to examine it themselves and make a determination. In as far as how it will affect the alliance is a matter that we agreed next year we'll talk about it. But they informed us that they've taken a decision and they are taking it to their Congress, and we leave it there. And then the ANC will discuss with them the implications of that decision in terms of its implementation, because it has got serious implications for the alliance, that kind of decision. So we've agreed with the party, and we want to respect that, and we want to respect the party as an independent organ, but we did caution against that.
One political analyst says the communists might have put the cart before the horse.
These threats in the past, but the only time they carried them out was Metsimaholo. But I think they have rather painted themselves into a corner now, because, if they now change their mind, I think they'll be ridiculed, and it will be very difficult for them to counter the ridicule. So I think we can assume that, as I say, unless they want to be publicly ridiculed, that they are going to contest on their own. And of course, in Metsimaholo, they got, the calculation I saw was that they got about 15% of the ANC vote. But now you have to remember that they were concentrating all their efforts on one quite small municipality. If they have to contest in every municipality around the country, or in most of the municipalities, including the metropolitan areas, I'm pretty confident that they won't get 15% of the ANC vote. They'll get less than that.
The SACP's decision also has implications for the Congress of South African Trade Unions. COSATU, which has always claimed to be the vanguard of the working class, will need to decide on who they will back if such a split does happen.
I'm sure this issue will be ventilated properly at the Congress, and then coming out of there, we will await a briefing, actually an alliance briefing by the SACP on their resolutions and how they plan to go about this and the modalities, and then we will take it from there. We are not at this point, I mean, it would be premature of us to actually now decide what we're going to tell our affiliates. This is something I'm sure they will discuss thoroughly and also come through, and it will be discussed thoroughly within the alliance.
Is the SACP trying to have the best of both worlds here? Stephen Friedman believes so.
They really are trying to have their cake and eat it too. They're not going to withdraw their cabinet ministers. And so we sit, you see, we've always had this alliance, which is a problem for democracy, not because they're in alliance, they're entitled to be in alliance, but because in effect you have one party's candidates campaigning on another party's ticket. So if you're a person who votes for the ANC, it doesn't matter whether you like the SACP or not. You're voting for a list which includes SACP members. So that's not ideal. And really, from a democratic point of view, what really ought to happen is what happens in most other democracies when parties have alliances, which is that they remain separate organizations and they work together during election time.
The ANC, which once espoused the principle of collective responsibility, is also seemingly struggling to find common ground on how to move forward after losing its majority at the polls. The KZN secretary this week launched a scathing attack on the mother body.
The ANC committee in national, it only 40%. National. Meaning NEC lost the country for 40%. In National Executive Committee, Ramaphosa, Mbalula, lost the country for 40%. They must take that responsibility. Today we are taking our own responsibility, of losing the province to 17%.
How are you going to rebuild? You want me to be your source?
No. But Mbalula stuck to script when he was asked to respond to Mtolo's assessment at Monday's NWC meeting.
We make nothing of those remarks. They mean nothing because we are 17%. And we have told them here today. And we have said to them that everybody must keep quiet and we will communicate decisions of the organization. Whatever that anyone says does not add to the solutions and what needs to be done. So we are engaging with our structures direct, and then those remarks by Mtolo, whatever they mean and all of that, they mean nothing. We are here now where we are, and we are moving forward. And we are going to reclaim KZN, and we are going to take hard decisions that are going to rebuild the ANC in that province. We are going to fix and build KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng, and that's what we are going to do.
Mbalula hinted at 3 options being considered by the National Working Committee to deal with the challenges in KZN and Gauteng. A solution could be tabled in the coming days.
So there will be no holy cows. Decisions will be taken to strengthen ourselves in that particular province. Surely people in the opposition side of politics in KZN, they are riding Ferraris, and we can't respond to a Ferrari with a conquest. We need to get into an aeroplane and fly. We have lost significantly in KZN. What we have emphasized here is that no blame game. We are all in this together.
Mbalula surely bemoaned the lack of that Ferrari in Thabazimbi, where President Cyril Ramaphosa was deployed this past Sunday ahead of a hotly contested by-election. The local council there was dissolved in September after serious allegations of corruption, high levels of debt and several other governance issues. The outcome of the polls? Thabazimbi is now a hung municipality, and the parties there will need to negotiate a coalition over this coming weekend. A new leadership collective, 23 seats to be exact, are expected to be in place by Monday.
It was placed under administration due to fundamental failures of governance. There were issues with, for example, 2 mayors, 2 municipal managers, same time running concurrently, and it seems as if a lot of the issues came from a smaller party called the Thabazimbi Residents Association. They were a big part of why there was these governance processes.
Limpopo Premier Poppy Ramathuba placed the Waterberg region, which the Thabazimbi municipality lies, under administration in terms of Section 1391 of the Constitution. Thabazimbi was brought to its knees by a fractious relationship between the ANC and a DA-led coalition, which saw both parties trying to exert their dominance over the other. Now, after all of the hullabaloo, it's back to the negotiating table, but this time there's a government of national unity which has in some instances cascaded into the local sphere.
We are not saying you have done something wrong. Yes. We are saying please explain your formula and the allocation of the seats.
As of now, we can confirm that we are in talks with various parties that will be represented in council. We will listen to anybody that brings reasonable offers. We will engage in accordance with our strength in the council. And out of that engagement, we'll look at what is the best model under the circumstances to take Thabazimbi going forward with.
The DA in Thabazimbi says its highest decision-making body will resolve who to work with. But just like in the GNU, the EFF and MK party are non-negotiable.
We're not just going to partner up for the sake of partnering up. And I know a lot of people actually ask whether we will bring a local GNU. Well, it first of all depends what the deals are. And by deals, I don't mean how much power the DA will get from it. It means who are the people involved? Are they skilled enough to do the job? Are they serious about service delivery? Are they expertise to make sure that our budgets run well and is allocated to where it is needed?
The Labour Party, which was formed by mining union AMCU, scored 1 seat on the council, their first election victory.
Firstly, we're very much thrilled and overwhelmed by a deep sense of gratitude that the people of Thabazimbi have entrusted us as a new kid on the block, at a party that comes really with no political mileage to back itself, but only because of the message that we took to the residents of Thabazimbi, and emerging as not just people who have now won a award, but also have an extra PR seat, and not just an ordinary ward, but a very strategic ward in the politics and the development pursuit of Thabazimbi. We are very much grateful to the trust that has been shown to us by the people of Thabazimbi. We could have wanted to see more, but we know that the environment that we entered into was a very turbulent one.
When we return, we turn our attention to South Africa's political relationship with Nigeria after the two countries' heads of state met on Tuesday to talk about deepening mutual cooperation. We look at the confusion and uproar caused when President Cyril Ramaphosa declared that citizens from the West African country will be able to visit South Africa without passports. Then we turn our attention to the cabinet reshuffle, or was it more of a shamble? Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying with Newsroom Africa as we continue to look back at the week that was in South African politics. Now, President Cyril Ramaphosa officially launched the country's G20 logo and website under the theme Solidarity, Equality, Sustainability.
South Africa's G20 presidency takes place at a moment and at a time in which the world is facing a number of serious challenges. The climate crisis is worsening and widening. Across the world, billions of people are affected by underdevelopment, inequality, poverty, hunger, as well as massive unemployment. So the outlook for global economic growth remains subdued, as we have often heard from global bodies such as the IMF and the World Bank. And many economies carry the burden of unsustainable levels of debt, particularly in the global south and on our own continent, Africa as well.
Ramaphosa was very clear that South Africa will advance its own agenda as an investment destination and put the African Union's Agenda 2063 on the center stage.
South Africa's presidency of the G20 will be the first time for an African country to preside over this most important body of the G20. We will use this moment to bring development priorities of the African continent and more broadly the global south more firmly onto the agenda of the G20. We are bringing the world to Africa, to South Africa, and they will be traveling in various groupings over the full 12 months. And all those people, as they travel, they will get to see South Africa in its great splendor.
On the same day, Ramaphosa met with his Nigerian counterpart, Bola Tinubu, to talk about trade, investment, and other forms of cooperation. But what was meant to be a run-of-the-mill update on bilateral relations ended up reinforcing the sometimes tenuous social relations between the two countries.
We look forward to seeing more Nigerian companies investing in South Africa. In fact, we want to see Nigerian products on the shelves of South African shops. Our efforts to create a favorable environment include our simplified visa process for Nigerian business people to travel to South Africa. Qualifying Nigerian business people can be granted a 5-year multiple entry visa. In addition, tourists from Nigeria are now able to apply for a visa without even submitting a passport. We expect that this 11th session of our Binational Commission will enable us to consolidate cooperation in a number of other areas. And we need to implement the many decisions that have already been taken between our two countries to follow up progress that has been achieved.
Some South Africans interpreted the comments by the president to mean that Nigerians would not need their passports when applying for a visa to enter the country. What wasn't properly explained by the president and those who write his speeches, especially to those who may not be informed about international traveling processes, is that what Ramaphosa meant is that the embassies would no longer keep people's passports during the visa verification process. Travel documents will only now be required upon arrival in South Africa. On the very same day as the Binational Commission, when everyone least expected it, our president announced changes to his cabinet, swapping Justice Minister Thembi Simelane and Human Settlements Minister Mbalula in those respective posts. Simelane escaped the chop despite being implicated in the VBS scandal.
We've spent the day at Dainhays, which is right behind me. Behind those gates is where we've spent the most part of today, together, of course, with the president and about close to a dozen or so of his ministers, but of course Minister Thembi being not part of them, as the president was engaged in that binational commission with his Nigerian counterpart. Not a word, not a hint from the presidency today that this was going to happen. But if you look, of course, at what has actually transpired, where essentially the Minister of Justice and the Minister responsible for human settlements just merely swapped positions. Hardly, a cabinet reshuffle the way many people would see it. Perhaps the weight of the allegations has just become too much for the president. You'll recall that from reports that were previously published, the minister stood accused of having benefited handsomely, from someone who was involved, Gundo Investments, who were involved in, of course, the scandals that led to VBS folding away. And the minister kept, of course, denying this and dismissing the allegations. And many people would recall that she then said, this was over 3 months ago, she did say that she had submitted a report to the president. But to this day, we haven't heard from the president about what was contained in that report and what the president actually thought of the allegation. Perhaps the fact that the president has felt no need to actually remove her completely, but merely to swap them together with, of course, the Minister of Human Settlements suggests that the president, no doubt, still has confidence in her, but perhaps he only wanted to deal with that aspect of the bigger complaint, which was that how do you allow someone who is implicated in serious allegations of corruption have been leveled against her, and yet she is responsible, she's a member of the Justice Cluster.
If you felt betrayed on Tuesday night while watching the news at home and felt that the president didn't take the nation into his confidence about the cabinet changes, well, you're not alone. While the SACP tried to downplay not being consulted as an alliance partner, its unhappiness was clear.
Well, to start with, we're not consulted on this matter because of a number of issues on the table. So this was an inconsequential matter as the party. Ideally, it's a matter that we should discuss.
Because you always consulted on cabinet reshuffles.
Yeah, of course, this is what I'm saying. But there were attempts, but because of pressing questions, this was a non-issue. We've got a serious problem with the current government of national unity.
That's unfortunately all the time we have together for now as we recap the week that was on the South African political landscape. Please continue to watch Newsroom Africa, where next week we'll bring you live coverage of the EFF's third National People's Assembly, which is their elective conference. At the same time, the SACP will have that important fifth Special National Commission to discuss the 2026 local government elections. Plus, the Umkhonto weSizwe Party celebrates 1 year since exploding onto the political scene at the Moses Mabhida Stadium. My name is Ziyanda Ngobo. Thank you for watching.